The visitor pattern is a way of performing multiple dispatch, and what that means is that if you have two different types of things and you need to perform an operation specifically on that pair of things and you don't know from the calling code which kind of thing they are, well, the visitor pattern is a way of performing that multiple dispatch so that you can choose one of the 9 different operations. Here's an example situation where you might want to use the visitor pattern. We've got this shape base type, and we've got 3 implementations of it, and we have 3 different operations that you perform on the shapes, and we have 3 different implementations of each of those different operations. There are reasons why you wouldn't want to keep these things together. One that I can think of off the top of my head is that perhaps you don't want to depend on Windows Forms. In which case, well, we need some way of taking these operations out of the square, the circle and the rectangle, and putting them into another object. And essentially what we're going to do is we're going to extract that method and put it into another thing. And we'd call that thing a visitor. Now, if we construct the visitor in a particular way, it will mean that we'll share the interface for all of these different operations, and we'll be able to essentially share some code. Okay, so this is what we've done. We've removed the individual operations from each of the shapes. So you'll notice that this abstract class here is very simple now. It's just a visit method, and each of the methods essentially just dispatch into one of the visitor methods. So we've extracted the structure from this, and the operation is now completely abstracted away. Now, if we look at the operations themselves, so this is the draw shape visitor. It keeps all of the draw operations in one place, and same with the bounds one. These are all together, and saving the shape is all together. Now in this file I've put them all together in the same assembly, but you could imagine a situation where drawing a shape would be off on its own assembly with the dependency on Windows Forms, and if you didn't want to include that assembly, you didn't want to depend on that assembly, then you didn't need to. The bounds is separate again. One thing you'll notice here is that we are calculating the bounds for the draw operations, and you could actually use the visitor to do that here if you really wanted. This isn't using all of the power of the visitor pattern. In most cases, we will know which operation that we're performing. So you will new up a save shape visitor, then pass the thing into it, and it will perform the right operation. But there you can imagine situations where actually you have this vague thing and we may want to perform the operation on, in which case you will have to, you may not know that it's a save shape, you might know only that it is a visitor. And an example where the visitor pattern might be helpful for doing that is if you wanted to perform an operation on 2 different of these types, and you'd end up with 9 different methods that you would have to deal with, which is about the same number that we've already got here. We've got 3 different visitor implementations, and they all have 3 operations. So summarizing, the visitor patterns for multiple dispatch, it allows you to separate structures from operations. It avoids coupling between the operations and the structures. It limits the responsibilities of the structure and the responsibilities of the operations. It allows you to keep the code of the operation together, but there is some overhead to get parameters and responses in and out of the visitors. So it's a slight increase in complexity, and there are some other options in modern languages. An example is that you can do a dynamic dispatch in C#, for example. We now have a pattern matching mechanism where you have a switch statement. This is an example of an alternative to using the visitor pattern. Did you like this? Let me know. Here are my details, and I'll put them in the description as well, or like and comment, and I'll talk to you next time.